Welcome to Vsb News Online for Friday, March 6. I'm Gina Thomas. 6 months after the acute care wing opened at the King Edward Hospital, the Bermuda Hospitals Board finds itself facing the alarming situation where all of the beds in the acute wing and the general hospital are full, with at least 30 of the beds occupied by seniors who do not need treatment but have been abandoned by their families. Health Minister Jean Everton told Parliament today that her new Seniors Council will look into the situation as a matter of priority.
The problem is that all 90 beds at the new acute care wing are full. Not only that, but all of the beds in the general wing of the hospital are also full, and the Bermuda Hospitals Board is having to add additional beds. Mr. Speaker, if the beds were full because we had a sudden influx of acutely sick patients, I would understand. But this is not the case. The problem and the source of my distress is that there is a growing trend for the families of these elderly Bermudians to refuse to take them back home. They refuse, Mr. Speaker, to take responsibility for their grandparents, their parents, their siblings, telling the hospital that they're unable to cope with an aging relative or do not have the appropriate resources at home. There are some instances in which the hospital's medical social workers help the family to find alternative placements for their relatives. But we're seeing cases where the family is still refusing to make a decision about placement, which leaves the senior in the hospital. Mr. Speaker, we have more than 30 Bermudians in the hospital who are what we call long-stay social admissions. These ladies and gentlemen do not need to be in the hospital. They should be at home, with their families in familiar surroundings that provide a degree of comfort that they can rely on. I have to pause here and say that it is my belief that the vast majority of families on this island are responsible and caring. They look out for and ensuring that their elderly relatives are well looked after. I know that many individuals and families scrimp and save and sacrifice to make sure that they provide for their elders. But there are others, Mr. Speaker, who do not seem to have the same motivation. Mr. Speaker, I've been made aware of cases where children who are professionals and have good jobs will not help to cover the cost of their parents' residential care, and the case where a senior's family have turned their collective backs and said, "They are not my problem, you find them somewhere to live." Mr. Speaker, what this says to me is that we still have much work to do. We want Bermuda to be a community where we can plan for old age, and as a family we work together to allow seniors to age gracefully at home with dignity and independence as far and as long as possible.
The parliamentary debate on the tourism budget caught fire in the House of Assembly this evening, and Shadow Minister of Tourism Zane De Silva held nothing back in his criticism of the budget cuts that have been levied.
To think that the Finance Minister has mentioned in his budget statement how important, how vital tourism is for Bermuda, to cut the budget, it just doesn't make sense to me. So for the budget to be cut again this year, it was $5 million last year, $1.5 million this year, I think we're going in the wrong direction. You will know that the tourism figures have gotten worse over the last year. And I hope for the life of me and for the life of Bermuda, notwithstanding the fact that I've had my challenges with the CEO of the BTA and also the minister, but I would like to see, hopefully, the work that the Tourism Authority are doing are going to bear good fruit for Bermuda going forward. I really do, because it's important. It's a very important part of Bermuda's stability going forward. So, having said that, to cut our advertising budget at this particular time, I think we're way off base. We currently get approximately $11 million a year out of the airport. Let's take that, put it into advertising. Why do we not see Bermuda advertisements on CNN, NBC, ABC, the Golf Channel? This is where we need to be. And until we do that, hopefully what they're doing now at the authority will bear some fruit. But until we really put money into advertising Bermuda and our product, I think we're going to end up on the short end of the stick.
We're certainly late in getting into the internet game, but someone somewhere has helped catch up quite dramatically under your government, and we seem to be carrying that on with the OBA.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, and you're right. You've done your homework. That did start under us, and I would like to think that the Tourism Authority are going to build it. And it certainly seems they're going that way, as you know. So hopefully that'll bear fruit for us.
Inflation in Bermuda continues to fall, and in January it reached 1.4%, one of the lowest figures in the past 5 years. Brian Darby has the details.
The bottom line for the latest cost of living statistics is that a basket of goods and services that cost $100 in April 2006 now cost $124. But on the more positive side, the inflation rate in January dropped a point to 1.4%, the lowest in many years. Looking at the increases, health and personnel went up 7.2%, food increased 3.7%, and household goods, services and communications rose 1.4%. On the sectors that showed decreases, the most dramatic was fuel and power, which fell 2.5% and enabled residential consumers of electricity to enjoy a 7.7% cut in their bills. Transport and vehicles fell 1.7%, thanks to a 5.2% decrease in the price of airfares and hotel accommodation. Brian Darby reporting for Vsb News.
Works Minister Craig Kennaner said today that the failure of many in the community to take advantage of the island's state-of-the-art recycling plant had created an untenable situation where annual costs were $1 million and annual sales around $6,000. It was for the reason that he warned civil servants that consideration was being given to the suspending the service.
One of the challenges we have is that the recycling plant itself, recycling in Bermuda, has not really wholesale been adopted. So we have a plant really that is inefficient. Our job, of course, is to ensure that we build efficiencies into the budget. So it was earmarked even before I became minister, actually, that we would be looking at alternatives. What's happened right now is that I started the procedure, actually, in ensuring that if we're going to look at alternatives, we need to let our civil servants know. We need to let people know. And those discussions were preliminary. If you look at the statement, it says proposed closure. And that's something that we are looking at. I was uncomfortable moving forward with the way that it was. And so I said, listen, let's all sit down. Let's look at exactly what it is that we're trying to do here and how do we proceed. And that's where we are.
Can you make money out of recycling?
No, we can't, actually. It's costing us over $1 million a year annually, and I think last year we may have made maybe $6,000, $7,000 off of it. So that's not sustainable, and I believe that there are sustainable measures that can be put in place, not necessarily by government itself. So we may need to sit down and listen to the stakeholders and say, how can we make this work? And that's what we're doing right now. I'd like to get more information as to exactly what it takes to make this thing work efficiently and to work for Bermuda. But the biggest challenge really is that Bermudians have not adopted recycling like we should. There's not enough recycling material coming down to the plant to move it forward.
And you know it exists.
Yes, that's right. It exists. We have enough waste out there that we could keep the plant going, but that's not the case. And I think maybe we need to go back to looking at how do we get the message out there to the public. This is a good thing we should be doing. We're small enough to contain it. Let's get on with the job of recycling like we should. We have a beautiful plant down there that was built. The capabilities of it are just phenomenal, but we're just not getting the material like we should.
And we'll be right back with more news right after this.
In an effort to make Bermuda's roads safer, and in partnership with Bermuda Police Service and the Bermuda Road Safety Council, Vsb Broadcasting is launching a safe driving campaign. Complete with thumb bands, come into Vsb Broadcasting and 94 Reed Street and make the commitment to drive safer and slower for yourself. Your voice could be featured on the radio. Get yourself a thumb band as a reminder of your commitment to drive safer and with fewer distractions. While you're at it, why not get one for someone in your life who also needs a reminder that our roads do not discriminate. They can take anyone's life. Let's drive safe, Bermuda, and arrive alive. Peace and love. Safe journeys.
In an effort to introduce collaboration among the political parties when it came to setting immigration policies, Shadow Home Affairs Minister Walton Brown has tabled a motion in Parliament calling for a joint select committee. He explains his reasons.
The purpose of the motion is to put together a parliamentary committee, members of both the House of Assembly as well as Senate, with a view toward having a collaborative approach to examining a range of issues involving the reformulation of immigration policy. We want to have a collaborative approach. We've been saying this from day one. And so this motion is an attempt to have Parliament examine the issue and come up with consensus positions. And the reason why we're calling for a 2/3 majority is to ensure, for the decision making, is to ensure that there truly is a collaborative approach. Anything less than that will just lead to, quite likely, a majority and a minority report, and then it just gets immersed into the political divide. So what we're trying to accomplish is a truly consensus building approach, recognizing that there has to be a bit of give and take on both sides to get a consensus opinion on what to do and how to go forward with regard to immigration policy.
You're clearly disturbed or anxious about the way we're doing it now. In fact, it's very much a political thing.
I think that it has become completely immersed in politics, and there are a variety of considerations that have permeated policy. And I recognize that we live and we are operating within a political realm. But some issues are of such national importance that we have to try to take the narrow confines of partisan political party politics and look at it in a political approach that says what is the best political framework for our immigration policy going forward.
Do we attack any other problem in the same way?
We had an earlier effort at looking at crime with the Joint Select Committee that has a similar approach, and I'm just hoping that we can step back from the partisan positions on this issue and truly develop a collaborative approach.
The golden age of piracy in the world occurred between 1680 and 1725 and involved Bermuda and Bermudians in some pretty fearsome incidents. This is why 84-year-old historian and author William Searzu has called his latest book The Pirate Menace, a 438-page definitive opus on all things piratical. He will be signing his book at the Bookmark on Saturday morning, but today he sat down with Vsb News' Brian Darby.
I've always been interested in the sea. I took a course in ships at Harvard and shipping. I completed my major work, the one I really wanted to do most, which was the story of Bermuda and her people. And then I looked around for something else that would interest me, and I thought pirates would, and I thought, well, I should be able to find out enough about pirates in a year to write something, but it took a great deal longer, and it went down all sorts of by roads and side lanes, and it eventually turned out to be an interesting study.
Do you know that any Bermudian family gained its wealth and its stature through under-the-counter privateering?
Yes. The best known example, and there probably were others, was the Gilbert family. The Gilberts put money into a pirate named Tew, and Tew captured a very rich prize out in the Indian Ocean. And the Gilberts were one of the shareholders, and they came in and finally got Mr. Tew to give up the right share of the loot. I've forgotten how many percentages they made on the investment, but it was a wonderful investment. And they are the Coxes. Sir John Cox and his family are descended from the Gilberts. And the main Cox homestead, called the Grove, is a Gilbert house, which was, it is said, was built with money from Tew's exploit.
It is hard to believe that an 8-year-old Canadian boy who lost a kidney and was warned of all contact sports could have developed into the principal male dancer for the Royal Ballet at the age of 29, spending a week here in Bermuda with his family. Matthew Golden talked about the challenge and the possibility that he might return in 2016.
Almost like a professional footballer, it never stops.
That's right, yeah. Professional football. As a Canadian, grew up ice hockey, so that's something that I always had the passion maybe I could become, but right away after I had my kidney removed when I was 7 years old, the doctors and the surgeons said he shouldn't play contact sports. Contact sports in a sense of not even like baseball or anything that would require, extreme conditions. But in the sense of ballet, it's a conditional high, we're in, fully, in great shape. But it was my way of saying I can still compete at that level, but with contact, no. Only contact with female dancers. Yeah.
And you have a partner who's from Russia.
That's right, Anna Tsigankova. We have a partnership on and off stage for the past 5 years, and we've been very fortunate to work with great companies and performing around the world, having the chance to create great new works from choreographers like Christopher Wilden, Ted Branson. We're just working on a new creation now happening in May and Amsterdam. So it's exciting to, it's been a great thing to have a special partnership.
And your Negan has been getting some what they call rush reviews or crash reviews, but you're used to that by now, aren't you?
It's a big thing in London, to get good reviews. So I've only been there roughly like a year, so it's been really nice to get that 4 or 5 star review. It helps, and just keep going forward with it, yeah.
Word of advice to this young man who's looking at you now saying, I'm going to be the next one. What does he really have to put into it?
Just believe in yourself, and just don't worry about it, and just go for it. And, dance is kind of, it's an enjoyment thing. It's through the joy and the expression of your true soul, so just be true to yourself and just believe in it.
Is there any possible chance of us seeing you dance in Bermuda?
I would hope so, yeah. It's anything's possible, so it's a great island, and the people are so friendly.
Your family's here?
My family's here, and I performed here 10 years ago with American Ballet Theatre, so it'd be great for, 10-year anniversary to, do something here.
And now we turn to Earl Bazin with the latest from the sports desk.
This weekend is shaping up to be a busy one for Bermuda in sports. Right here at the National Sports Center tonight is a warm-up match between Bermuda and Grenada in football. Right here on this field on Saturday, Bermuda will take on Turks and Caicos, who are in the background preparing for the match. On Sunday, up on the football field, Bermuda will play their second warm-up match against Grenada. Turks and Caicos manager, a former Bermuda resident, Keith Brandt, is hoping they can produce a win.
Well, obviously, we'd like to come away with a victory and go into our next match against Bahamas 1-up, but we know it'll be a tough ask. Bermuda's got a decent team, and they're playing on home soil, so, I'd say the advantage is theirs, but we're out here to compete, and we think we match up fairly well in a few areas in terms of probably use a bit of a kick and chase game. I think we probably have a bit of an advantage on the pace, and Bermuda will be a bit of a rumbling team and use their forwards from what I've seen in their last couple of games.
Now, amongst the Caribbean, we always see these type of tournaments come around, and it always seems to be a balance there. Do you feel as a region we are getting stronger in the sport of rugby?
Well, I would think what we're having is a bit of a change in rugby in the region. Financial crisis has resulted in fewer expatriates playing for Caribbean sides, and that's resulted in some change. Rugby's not a extremely popular sport in a lot of the Caribbean islands, and getting a decent youth development program is essential to then fielding a strong men's national team. Our squad, probably a bit like Bermuda, is split between some aging expatriates who, qualify to play, and a bunch of young Turks Islanders who don't quite have the experience but have the athletic skill sets that'll let them be good rugby players in the future. So, yes, we're seeing that a lot of the Caribbean nations are playing better rugby against each other. What I'm also seeing is that the nations that we have to compete against in our pool, Mexico, USA, Canada, they're pulling away just because rugby's becoming more popular in those countries. Mexico's got 93 million people. So from a pure competition point of view, that's sort of a David and Goliath competition.
The Bermuda Golf Association's Amateur Match Play Championships continued at the Mid-Ocean Golf Course under bright and sunny skies with a steady breeze blowing west-southwesterly. In the latest championship play, Ebony Burgess defeated Tina Balanca 7-6, while Tracy Burgess needed 19 holes to defeat Tracy Nash. Elizabeth Parsons defeated Gina Zangrillo 4-2, and the game between Katrin Burney and Linda Down needed 21 holes to decide a winner, with Down advancing. In the men's championship division, after being down 3 after 3 holes, Walker Campbell stormed back to defeat Sean Knight 4-3, while Jarrett Dillis, down 3 with 8 holes to play, could only pull 2 back, as Mark Phillips won 1 up. Javon Roberts defeated Greg Riley Jr. 2-1, and the match between Joshua Cabrera and Gary Bregman ended in favor of Cabrera 1 up. Every year, Bermuda sailors take to the waters in Florida to compete in the Bacardi Miami Sail Week. In the One Design division, the team of Douglas DeCuto, Bill McNevin, and Raquel Evans, sailing Man of War, are in 5th place after 3 races with 16 points. The trio had finishes of 5th, 7th, and 4th. In the same division, Summers Kemp, Butch Agnew, and Adam Barboza are in 10th, sailing overproof. They have 32 points after the 3 races. Competing in the J70 class, Chuck Milligan, Dave Brennan, Carola Cooper, and Dan Coughlin are in 38th place with 100 points. They recorded finishes of 35th, 29th, and 36th. In a lone Corona League makeup match at the BAA field last evening, it saw Robin Hood defeat Lock and Key 7-2. Robin Hood were led by Rohan Simons, who scored a hat-trick. Jamie Smith added 2. Fabio DeVelio and Keenan Robinson added a goal each. Chris Anderson and Stevie Ashwood scored a goal each for Lock and Key. Meanwhile, David Jones and his Mansfield Youth teammates drew 1-1 yesterday with Solly Hall. Trey Simons and his Northern Iowa Athletic Community College men's indoor track and field teammates competed at the NJCAA regional meet in Storm Lake. Simons finished 2nd in the mile with a time of 4:24.34. Bathsheba had to win to keep their chances of making the playoffs alive, but Nadav Williams and his Haifa underdog teammates defeated them 50-7 in Israeli Football League action. Williams ended the game with 13 carries for 101 yards with 1 touchdown, and his longest run being 36 yards. Join me on Monday when I will have results of all these sports and more on VSB. I'm Earl Baston with sports.
Looking at the weather for Saturday, March 7th, it will be cloudy with periods of rain and showers. Decreasing in the afternoon, winds will be southwesterly moderate to strong, varying northwesterly in the early afternoon, decreasing moderate in the late afternoon, and varying northwesterly late overnight. We are expecting a high near of 70 Fahrenheit and a low near 62 Fahrenheit. This weather forecast is courtesy of the Bermuda Weather Service. Thanks for watching VSB News Online for Friday, March 6. I'm Gina Thomas.